Ryan, Maya, and Derek all bought houses. These are valuable assets that many people dream of. But those houses have added to their debt. On paper, they are rich, but in reality, they are poorer in terms of cash flow and financial freedom. Not every house makes you richer. The real question isn't whether you can afford to buy a house, but whether you'll have enough money afterward to continue investing and building your financial future. If you want to find out how much you can actually afford to buy a house for without sacrificing your long-term goals, subscribe to the channel today. Ryan earns $60,000 a year, or about $5,000 in gross monthly income, and takes home around $3,900 after taxes. He buys a $250,000 home, puts 10% down, and takes out a $225,000 mortgage. His monthly principal and interest payment is about $1,406, but that's far from the full cost of owning the home. He also pays about $229 in property taxes, $130 for homeowners insurance, and $150 in PMI, because his down payment is less than 20%. In total, the house costs Ryan about $1,915 every month. After getting paid, he has only about $1,985 left to cover all of his living expenses, including groceries, transportation, utilities, car insurance, phone bills, healthcare, home maintenance, and unexpected costs. In reality, his monthly living expenses run between $2,200 and $2,400, leaving him short by about $200 to $400 each month. From that point on, Ryan's financial life begins to change. He can no longer invest consistently or build the emergency fund he originally planned. Each month becomes a struggle to pay bills and avoid missing payments. Some months, he has to borrow money from friends or family just to cover the gap. He isn't borrowing because he's overspending. He's borrowing because the house consumes too much of his fixed monthly cash flow. Over time, the money that was meant for his emergency fund gets used to cover everyday expenses instead. Without that financial cushion, even an unexpected $2,000 to $3,000 expense is enough to force him to borrow more or rely on credit cards. Owning a home makes Ryan a homeowner, but it also slows his ability to build a strong financial foundation. His cash flow is no longer enough to support everyday living, maintain an emergency fund, and invest for the future at the same time. Next is Maya, who earns $100,000 a year, or about $8,333 in gross monthly income, and takes home around $6,300 after taxes. She buys a $400,000 home, puts 20% down, $80,000, and finances about $320,000. Her monthly principal and interest payment is about $2,000, plus roughly $367 in property taxes and $140 for homeowners insurance. Since she puts 20% down, she doesn't have to pay PMI, bringing her total monthly housing cost to about $2,507. After paying for her home, Maya has about $3,793 left each month. That sounds comfortable at first, but her actual living expenses and unexpected costs add up to around $2,800 to $3,500 per month. That leaves her with only about $300 to $1,000. Meanwhile, investing 15% of her income and continuing to build an emergency fund would require more than what she has left. Maya's problem isn't a low income. It's that her financial safety margin is too thin. Before buying her home, she had been contributing to her retirement account for nearly 4 years and had accumulated about $28,000 to $32,000. But after buying the house, she gradually reduced and eventually stopped making retirement contributions. Then the unexpected expenses began to pile up. About $7,200 for an HVAC repair, roughly $3,100 for plumbing and appliance repairs, an additional $2,640 per year from higher property taxes and insurance premiums, along with other home repairs and everyday expenses. Altogether, the financial pressure grows to around $25,000 to $30,000. Eventually, Maya is forced to withdraw her entire retirement account to cover those costs. She keeps the house, but sacrifices money that could have continued compounding for years. Maya doesn't fall apart because of one major crisis. Instead, it's the steady stream of smaller, real-life expenses that slowly drains her finances. Without a solid emergency fund, her home turns her retirement savings into an emergency fund.
Finally, there's Derek, who earns $175,000 a year, or about $14,583 in gross monthly income, and takes home around $10,000 to $10,500 after taxes. He buys a $500,000 home, puts 20% down, $100,000, and finances about $400,000. His monthly principal and interest payment is about $2,507, plus roughly $750 in property taxes and $160 for homeowners insurance. Since he puts 20% down, he doesn't have to pay PMI, bringing his total monthly housing cost to about $3,417. That housing payment is only about 23% of his gross income, which looks very safe on paper. After paying for the house, Derek still has around $6,600 to $7,100 left each month. However, his real problem isn't his income. It's that too much of his cash has been tied up in the house. After using $100,000 for the down payment, he has only about $20,000 left in cash reserves.
For someone with a larger home, a higher cost of living, and greater maintenance expenses, that emergency cushion isn't as comfortable as it seems. If Derek's non-housing living expenses run between $4,500 and $5,500 per month, he's left with only about $1,100 to $2,600. Before buying the house, he was consistently investing in his retirement account and index funds. But after becoming a homeowner, he starts worrying about unexpected costs, such as major repairs, higher property taxes, or rising insurance premiums. To rebuild his emergency fund, Derek has to reduce his monthly investments from about $2,000 to just $800 to $1,000, keeping the rest in cash to prepare for unexpected expenses. As a result, Derek is still wealthy on paper because of his net worth, but cash poor in everyday life. The house doesn't bankrupt him, but it takes away his financial flexibility and slows the growth of his long-term wealth. Most of his wealth is locked inside his home, and that equity can't pay this month's unexpected bills.
What Ryan, Maya, and Derek have in common is that they all bought homes during a time when the cost of living in the United States was rising faster than incomes. The real issue isn't simply owning a home. It's whether, after buying one, you still have enough money left to cover your living expenses, build an emergency fund, keep investing, and maintain long-term financial stability. Ryan is the clearest example. After paying $1,915 a month in housing costs, he has only about $1,985 left to cover everything else. On paper, that may seem enough, but in reality, it has to pay for groceries, transportation, insurance, utilities, phone bills, healthcare, and countless unexpected expenses. Once his living costs exceed what's left, Ryan can no longer build an emergency fund. Some months, he even has to borrow money from friends or family just to pay his bills. As a result, Ryan owns a home, but his plan to build a strong financial foundation comes to a standstill. Instead, he finds himself trapped in a cycle of earning money, making his mortgage payment, covering monthly expenses, and doing it all over again the following month. Maya appears to be in a much safer position than Ryan, but she faces a different kind of financial pressure. After covering all of her expenses, she has only about $300 to $1,000 left each month, far too little to keep investing, build an emergency fund, and continue contributing to retirement at the same time. At first, she simply reduces her investments, but then higher property taxes, rising insurance premiums, home repairs, and unexpected everyday expenses begin to pile up. As the financial pressure grows, Maya stops contributing to her retirement account and eventually withdraws her entire retirement savings after nearly 4 years of investing just to cover her expenses. She keeps her home, but sacrifices money that could have continued compounding for many years.
Derek represents a different kind of financial pressure, having substantial assets but very little cash. His problem isn't his income, it's that too much of his money is tied up in his home. After making the down payment, his remaining emergency fund is no longer large enough for his lifestyle, maintenance costs, and ongoing fixed expenses. He constantly worries about unexpected repairs, higher property taxes, or rising insurance premiums. To rebuild his emergency fund, Derek has to reduce his monthly investments, slowing the growth of his long-term wealth. The house doesn't bankrupt him, but it takes away his financial flexibility. On paper, Derek is wealthy because of his home equity, but that wealth can't pay his monthly bills or provide the financial freedom he expected.
Looking back, Ryan's everyday living expenses overwhelm his ability to build an emergency fund. Maya's housing costs and ongoing unexpected expenses slowly erode her retirement savings. Derek is asset-rich but cash-poor, forcing him to slow down his long-term investing. All three own homes, but each of them sacrifices something important: the ability to invest consistently, maintain an emergency fund, and preserve financial flexibility. A home is supposed to provide stability, but when it stretches your cash flow too far, it can become a lasting source of financial pressure. Mortgage payments, reduced investments, unexpected expenses, and the feeling of owning valuable assets without truly being financially free. If your mortgage leaves you short on money for everyday living, you'll eventually find yourself borrowing. If you can't build an emergency fund, you'll always be living with financial stress. If you have to cash out your investments to cover unexpected expenses, you're sacrificing your future to solve today's problems. And if most of your wealth is locked inside your home while your bank account stays thin, you may be wealthy on paper, but cash poor in real life. So before asking, how much house can I afford? Ask a more important question. After buying a home, will I still have enough money to build my financial future? After paying your mortgage, property taxes, homeowner's insurance, maintenance costs, and everyday living expenses, will you still be able to maintain a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, invest consistently, and continue saving for retirement? More importantly, will you feel at peace living in that home, or will every month become another financial struggle? The right home isn't the most expensive one you can buy, or the largest mortgage a bank is willing to approve. It's the home that still allows you to live comfortably, protect your family, and continue building your financial future. Because buying a home is only the beginning. The real challenge is living in that home while staying financially secure and enjoying peace of mind for years to come.